On January 11, 1993, at 4 in the morning, firefighters rushed to a house in Prévey-Saint-Moin, a quiet town near the Swiss border. Flames were engulfing the home of Dr. Jean-Claude Romand, a respected researcher at the World Health Organization in Geneva. Inside, they found 3 bodies: his wife Florence, aged 37, and their children, Caroline, 7, and Antoine, 5. Jean-Claude himself was found unconscious but alive, rushed to Geneva Hospital in a deep coma. At first, the community assumed this was a tragic accident, but within hours, everything changed. 80 kilometers away, gendarmes discovered 2 more bodies. Aimé and Anne-Marie Romand, Jean-Claude's elderly parents, had been shot dead. Their dog lay beside them, also killed. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something far more disturbing. The accomplished doctor, the World Health Organization researcher, the devoted family man, none of it was real. Jean-Claude Romand had been living a complete lie for 18 years. He had never worked a single day at the World Health Organization. He had never even passed his second-year medical exams, and he had just murdered everyone who could expose his secret. Jean-Claude Romand was born on February 11, 1954, in Lons-le-Saunier, in the Jura region of eastern France. He grew up in Clairvaux-le-Lac, a village of barely 1,500 people surrounded by forests and turquoise lakes. His family came from a long line of foresters. His father, Aimé, worked as a forest manager and farmer. His mother, Anne-Marie, was a homemaker described as fragile and anxious. They were modest, hard-working people who poured all their hopes into their only child. Jean-Claude was everything they wished for. Brilliant in school, always top of his class, he was the kind of boy who wore a tie before anyone asked him to. Shy and serious beyond his years, he confided more in the family dog than in other children. Those who knew him as a child described him as unexpressive and cerebral. He liked wandering the forests with his father during tree-marking expeditions. Psychiatrists later described him as raised as a precious child, constantly praised and sheltered. His identity became entirely dependent on being the perfect son who never disappointed, who always succeeded exactly as expected. Any failure was unthinkable. In June 1971, Jean-Claude passed his baccalaureate with a year's advance, proving his exceptional abilities. He scored 16 out of 20 on his philosophy exam. The subject he chose was prophetic. Does truth exist? That autumn, Jean-Claude enrolled in preparatory classes for the prestigious École des Eaux et Forêts in Lyon. He lasted only 1 term. According to his testimony, a hazing incident traumatized him so deeply that he dropped out. Unable to admit failure to his father, Jean-Claude invented health problems to explain his withdrawal. The following year, 1972, he enrolled in medical school. The decision was partly strategic. At the university, he knew he would find Florence Crollet, a distant cousin by marriage whom he was determined to marry. The first 2 years went smoothly, but in 1975, whether he froze or simply failed, Jean-Claude did not pass his second-year exam. Some accounts say he didn't even show up. He could not tell anyone. Not his parents, who had sacrificed for his success. Not Florence, who he was trying to win back. Not his classmates, who saw him as one of the best students. So he lied. He told everyone he passed. For 18 years, Jean-Claude Romand pretended to have a career that did not exist. What followed was perhaps the most astonishing sustained deception in modern criminal history. Each year, he re-enrolled in second-year medicine at the University of Lyon. He attended some classes, obtained course materials, showed his face in examination halls, but never sat the exams. He simply walked out and later told everyone he passed. To his family, his progress was stellar. He moved through medical school, completed his internship, supposedly ranked 5th in Paris. His mother boasted about him to neighbors. No one thought to verify anything. Why would they? He was Jean-Claude, the perfect son who had never failed at anything. In 1980, he married Florence, now a pharmacist. She believed completely in the man she was marrying. He was charming, intelligent, and his medical knowledge was genuinely impressive. He studied journals constantly, not to practice medicine, but to maintain his lie. When the university finally blocked him from re-enrolling in 1986 after 12 years in the same class, it didn't matter. Jean-Claude had invented a grander position. He claimed first to be a researcher at INSERM, the French National Health Research Institute. Then he upgraded, a position at the World Health Organization in Geneva. Every morning, Jean-Claude kissed his wife and children goodbye and left for work. He drove toward Geneva, and then, nothing. He spent his days in parking lots, reading Le Monde and medical journals. He wandered in forests, took long walks by Lake Geneva, sat in cafeterias. He used the World Health Organization's public library, which anyone could access without credentials. When supposedly at medical conferences in Tokyo or New York, he drove to Geneva Airport, checked into a nearby hotel, and spent days studying travel guides about countries he was pretending to visit. In 1985, daughter Caroline was born. In 1987, son Antoine followed. The family moved into a comfortable house on Route de Bellevue. Jean-Claude drove a nice car. They seemed like the perfect family of an international health researcher. At dinner parties, Jean-Claude could hold his own with real doctors. Once, he engaged in detailed conversation about cardiology with a visiting cardiologist. The doctor was so impressed that afterward he told the host, "Next to people like him, you feel very small." But Jean-Claude had no salary. He had no job. He had nothing. How did a man with no income support a family for 2 decades? Jean-Claude positioned himself as a financial advisor. Given his supposed World Health Organization position, he claimed access to exclusive Swiss banking opportunities, promising exceptional returns. His parents gave him their savings. Florence's father, Pierre Crollet, handed over his entire retirement bonus, 400,000 francs. An uncle dying of cancer gave 60,000 francs after Jean-Claude sold him experimental cancer medications. They were placebos. He ran a Ponzi scheme, using money from new victims to pay off old ones. Then there was Chantal Delalande, a dentist who became his mistress. When she sold her practice for 900,000 francs, she asked Jean-Claude to invest it. He took the money and spent it. In total, investigators estimated Romand siphoned approximately 2.5 to 3 million francs from his victims. On October 23, 1988, Jean-Claude's father-in-law, Pierre Crollet, suffered a fatal fall down the stairs of his home. Jean-Claude was the only witness. Emergency responders reported hearing Pierre stammer something like, "Jean-Claude ma, Jean-Claude ma," before Jean-Claude intervened to place an oxygen mask over his face. Pierre died days later without regaining consciousness. Pierre had recently asked for his money back. It was the first such demand. The death was ruled an accident. Jean-Claude organized the funeral and launched a fundraising campaign, later diverting all donations. Whether Romand killed his father-in-law has never been proven. He was never charged, but the suspicion has followed him ever since. By late 1992, the construction was cracking. Chantal was demanding her 900,000 francs. Friends were asking questions. Family members wanted their money. Florence was growing suspicious. She couldn't reach her husband at his WHO office. When she called the main number, no one knew Dr. Romand. The final blow came from the Children's School Board. Someone tried to contact Dr. Romand at the World Health Organization. They confirmed they had no employee by that name. Florence now knew something was terribly wrong. In early January 1993, Jean-Claude made preparations. On January 5th, he tried to obtain barbiturates. On January 6th, he purchased a stun gun, tear gas, cartridges, and a silencer. On January 8th, he bought jerry cans and filled them with gasoline. On January 9th, he borrowed his father's rifle. He asked the shopkeeper to gift wrap the silencer. That day, his wife confronted him. The argument that followed would be their last. According to the investigation, Jean-Claude killed Florence in their bedroom, beating her to death with a rolling pin. He slept beside her body. The next morning, he woke his children. Caroline and Antoine came down for breakfast and watched cartoons together. During his trial, Romand described this moment. "I knew, after killing Florence, that I was going to kill Antoine and Caroline too, and that this moment, in front of the television, would be the last we spent together. I cuddled them. I said words like, 'I love you.' Then he sent them to their rooms. He placed a pillow over Caroline's face and shot her. He did the same to Antoine. Jean-Claude tidied up, collected the mail, bought newspapers. He watched television. Around noon, he drove to his parents' house. He had lunch with Aimée and Anne-Marie as if nothing had happened. After the meal, he led them upstairs and shot them both in the back. He shot their dog too. Then he drove toward Paris. Chantal Delalande expected a romantic evening. Jean-Claude had promised dinner at the home of Bernard Kouchner, the famous doctor and politician whom he claimed as a friend. Kouchner had never heard of Romand. They drove toward Fontainebleau. Around 11 at night, Jean-Claude stopped in a forest clearing and attacked. He sprayed Chantal with tear gas and tried to strangle her. She fought back desperately. And then, for reasons he never explained, Jean-Claude stopped. He apologized, made her promise to tell no one, and drove her home. He returned to Prévessin-Mouin. His family's bodies were still in their beds. He sat down and watched television. In the early hours of January 11th, Jean-Claude soaked the house with gasoline. He poured fuel over his wife and children. He swallowed barbiturates that had expired 10 years earlier. At 4 in the morning, he set the fire and lay down to die. But the fire started precisely when garbage collectors were passing. They called firefighters, who found Romand unconscious but breathing. Questions arose about whether his suicide attempt was genuine. Why choose expired pills? Why set the fire when help was most available? In his car, investigators found a note. "A simple accident and an injustice can cause madness. Forgive me." Investigators moved quickly. They contacted the World Health Organization. No one named Jean-Claude Romand had ever worked there. They contacted the medical faculty and discovered he had spent 12 years in the same second-year class without passing. The man everyone knew simply did not exist. When questioned, Chantal revealed the forest attack. The pieces came together. 5 murders, 1 attempted murder, 18 years of fraud. The shock spread through the community. Neighbors, friends, colleagues at the children's school. Everyone who had known and respected Dr. Romand struggled to comprehend how completely they had been deceived. Jean-Claude Romand's trial opened on June 25, 1996, at the Cour d'Assises in Bourg-en-Bresse. The defendant sat quietly, a heavy-set man who looked more like a country priest than a mass murderer. Throughout the proceedings, Romand offered little explanation. He spoke of fear of failure and fear of disappointing his family. He claimed the killings were meant to spare his loved ones the pain of discovering his lies. "If I killed Florence," he said, "it was because of the intolerable pain she would have suffered when she understood my lies. Then I had to kill the children. Where would they have been without their parents?" Psychiatric experts diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. They described a man whose entire identity was constructed to please others, who had no authentic self beneath the performance. His existence, they said, was built on a bottomless void. But they concluded he was fully responsible for his actions. There was no diminished capacity, no legal insanity. He knew exactly what he was doing. The prosecution demolished his claims of impulsive violence. The purchases of weapons, silencer, tear gas, and gasoline days before the killings demonstrated clear premeditation. The methodical way he killed each family member, the hours between murders, the failed attack on his mistress. This was not madness, but a calculated plan. When questioned about the murders, Romand broke down only once, when discussing the death of his dog. On July 2nd, 1996, after 4 hours of deliberation, the verdict came. Guilty of 5 counts of premeditated murder. Life imprisonment with a minimum 22 years before parole eligibility. The maximum sentence. Jean-Claude Romand served his time at Saint-Maur prison. He became a model prisoner, restoring documents, earning a computer degree, reportedly converting to Christianity. Writer Emmanuel Carrère corresponded with him and published L'Adversaire in 2000, later adapted into a film with Daniel Auteuil. Emmanuel Crollet, Florence's brother, spoke about Romand's parole application. Everyone says he's a model prisoner, but 25 years ago, he was also a model son-in-law, a model husband, and we learned tragically that he had lied to everyone. On June 28, 2019, after 26 years, Romand was released under electronic surveillance and sent to a Benedictine monastery. In 2022, he left to live in a village in Indre on a pension of €800 monthly. He is forbidden from contacting victims' families or speaking to media. The story of Jean-Claude Romand has haunted France for 3 decades. It raises questions without easy answers. How could one man deceive so many for so long? The answer may be simpler than we want to believe. We see what we expect. Jean-Claude looked like a successful doctor, spoke like one, acted like one. No one checked because no one imagined there was anything to check. His friend Luc Ladmiral, who became a real doctor while Jean-Claude pretended to be one, later reflected on years of friendship and medical conversations. He had been fooled completely. Everyone had. Some have tried to find deeper explanations in Romand's childhood, in the pressure of being the perfect son, in that single moment when one small lie became impossible to retract. But millions of people face pressure without murdering their families. The gap between lying about an exam and executing 5 people in cold blood cannot be bridged by psychology alone. What made Jean-Claude Romand unique was not his capacity for deception, but his willingness to kill rather than face truth. In his mind, death was preferable to exposure, not just his own death, but the deaths of everyone who believed in him. The note he left spoke of injustice. Even at the end, he saw himself as a victim. Today, somewhere in France, Jean-Claude Romand wakes up each morning knowing exactly who he is. After a lifetime of pretending, after 18 years of living as someone who never existed, that knowledge may be the cruelest punishment of all.